Okay, welcome back. Feels brand new, man. We took about 5 weeks off. Hope everybody had a great holiday, but we're back here at Suite 607 for Conversations at Hip Hop Closet. A lot of you guys seen the new graphic we've been using. I think it's fly. Mesh, you did that, right?
Yep.
Awesome. Looks amazing. We're in year 2. We started this out second week of January 2023 with Ralph McDaniels. Ralph was our first guest. And we did about 48, right? Give or take, about 45, 48 episodes. And now we're back for year 2. Hope everybody had a great holiday, great Christmas, great Happy New Year's. We know that COVID thing is spiking and going around, so I hope everybody's in good health. And yeah, man, how's everybody doing? Everybody good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm
good?
chilling. Yeah.
Kai, you good?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm great.
Okay, cool. We're going to get started. The person to my left today, and this is actually a great first interview for second season. The brother to my left, the first time I ever saw this brother was at an East Kwanzaa event. Maybe 90, maybe 89, 90. I may have been 14, 15 years old. And this brother and his family had returned from Liberia. And you'll tell the story once we get there, right? But that's the first time I ever saw you was at the Kwanzaa event where you guys were talking about returning from Liberia. And so for me, you know, the family that introduced me to the East was very influential in my upbringing as a kid. And it was a bit of a dichotomy because I really come out of a very, you know, like my people's sold numbers and did hair. Like I was like that quintessential black inner city family, and learning about blackness was new, right? And so meeting you guys and knowing that you guys had come back from living in Africa was a major thing, right? And so I've always remembered you, and shout to your brother Jew, shout to Saj. I've always remembered y'all from that moment because that was the first time I'd ever kind of laid eyes on someone who could say that they lived in Africa but looked and sounded like me. You and I have had tons of conversations over the years. I've kind of followed your creative path, brotherly love, right? I copped that when it came out. When Blowing Down, when I wrote that, put a copy in your mailbox. When you were writing, you contacted me about, you know, certain mechanics of the work. And so you and I have always had great conversations, but there's always been a creative kinship, I believe, you know, especially with me watching how you've been successful. It's good to have that in a tribe. It's good to see success because that's how you become successful, as you be around and you taste and witness success. I want to read a bit of your bio. You're a 2-time Emmy Award nominated producer, Television Academy Honors recipient, Telly Award for winning creative director, BET Lens on Talent, an award-winning director, an actor, screenplay writer, and novelist. I get to introduce to some and to present to others my brother Attika Torrence. What's up?
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, and I mean, that's kind of where I want to start because it was, I mean, I want you to imagine that. Like, I mean, you grew up in the East, right?
Mhm.
But I want you to imagine a kid that had no ties to black nationalism at its root comes into this situation where blackness is like visceral and meets a family that came back from living in Liberia. Right? Liberia ain't even the first. If you don't have knowledge yourself and you think of Africa, you don't even think about Liberia. You may not even know about Liberia, right?
Well, most people that think Africa speak of it as a country.
As a country anyway,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
you don't even look at it in that way.
Yeah.
So it was fascinating, and everything about that time period was fascinating to me. But meeting you and getting to know you and becoming friends and family with you is something that's been an amazing thing. So I want to start at the beginning, like. So tell me about where were you born? Where were you raised? Your early
I'm
days.
from Brooklyn.
Right.
I'm from Brooklyn. I was born in St. Clair's Hospital in Manhattan. My grandmother worked there at the time. I was about to introduce myself to the world. And so I was born in Manhattan, technically, but we lived in Brooklyn. And yeah, I'm from Brooklyn. And the interesting thing, you mentioned the quintessential inner city family. I thought we were the quintessential inner city family. I thought my tribe, because we had a vast extended family, and we did almost everything together. We went to school. Our parents, we spent the night at each other's houses. We went to play. We went to martial arts. We went to sporting events. We went on camping trips. We did all. I mean, granted, I came back home to the block, but my parents were so influential in the block that we got people from our block to attend our school, and they went on trips with us and things of that nature. So I never saw us as other than the quintessential inner city black family. You know, until I got much older. Like, quite honestly, I didn't realize that a lot of people didn't have a father in the house until I got much older. And I realized that. That wasn't my testimony or that of most, the vast majority of the people I was raised with.
Yeah, I think whenever you grow up, you look at your life as center.
Yeah, you're very myopic as it relates to your journey.
Right. It's not until you grow and you realize the layers.
Yeah.
Right. And I get that, and I felt the same way. Right. And that's kind of was one of those moments where it was like, you know, because I grew up with the Masharikas from junior high school, so in a lot of ways I was a child in this as well. But seeing differences in terms of execution of family values, that's what I'll say. Right? It was something that was an eye-opening thing. And tradition, like the East Kwanzaa thing is a tradition, bro. That's as traditional as you can get.
And the one you're speaking about is specifically the East Family Kwanzaa Committee Kwanzaa. That's not to be confused with the Kwanzaa Collective, because the Kwanzaa Collective used to happen at Boys and Girls High and sometimes at 35. But that was more like a market open to the world. That was open for all to come and all to enjoy, support the vendors, enjoy the entertainment. The East Family Kwanzaa Collective is really an East Family reunion. That's what it is. And you know, it maintains its form of its being a little bit nucleic. You know, just the nucleic East family, as opposed to inviting the world. As we never have vendors, we never have the entertainment is the children or the people who attended the East. It's not hiring groups, and it's not branching out to that. So from that perspective, it's extremely traditional. It's extremely traditional, and it's to some degree it's just germane to this particular sect of people.
And I don't want to go too deep into it, but proof of that is the introduction of the families.
Yes.
Like that's something. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, you remember the reunion I'm talking about? It was in that center on Fulton Street.
Yeah,
Fort
669.
Right.
I don't remember the particular one, but I know what was happening then and at that time. It was 669.
It was 669. So you are born and raised here in Brooklyn. When do you leave for Liberia? How old
82. I was 10 years old, 1982. And what happened is my father, he had gone to Liberia around 1980, right after. So in Liberia, in Monrovia, there was a coup that occurred. President William Tolbert was assassinated. Samuel Cato took over, and a whole lot of people, unfortunately, was assassinated. That is what they dealt with. But shortly after the coup, when things settled down, my father and his partner, actually, the gentleman who brought my father along was a gentleman named Jim Cuffey. And he's a prominent figure in, in the Black Pan-African movement, especially in Brooklyn. The Pan-Africanist movements, revolutionary movement, nationalist movements all had, quiet donors. And Jim Cuffey was said to be one of them. A descendant of Paul Cuffey, that's a whole other conversation, for those who know. But when my father and Uncle Jim, I used to call him Mr. Cuffey, went back and forth to Liberia, they decided to set up an organization called the PX, the Post Exchange, the duty-free shops. So when Uncle Jim went to start the business, he brought my father along to manage, you know, um, the business, and they started duty-free shops in Liberia in 1982. So when he went there in 80, then he would go and come from time to time, take some of his, he took my youngest brother, he took my sister, and then in 82 he brought the whole family. And that's when they had a ceremony for us at the East, because, you know, Liberia was chosen for several reasons. But being from a Garveyite mentality, it was more, uh, the black man cannot be free in America. You know, Africa is for the black man, Africa is for Africans. And we could never be free in America. And that was the whole concept of the Garvey movement. My parents believed in that. So when the time came, you know, one of the truest forms of Pan-Africanism is going back to Africa. So that's what we did in '82.
You get there, do you have any, I don't want to say culture shock because that's too intense of a thing, but is there an adjustment period for Attica the 10-year-old?
Absolutely, because Attica the 10-year-old had just grounded himself.
Right.
Attica the 10-year-old knew what was where, how to do what he, like Attica the 10-year-old had figured it out, had figured out how to be Attica.
In Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn.
Right.
Like I was just, you know, I knew where to walk. I knew, you know,
Right.
back then, you know, I was walking through the projects to get from my cul-de-sac, Dewey Place, to get to cutting through Brevoort projects, going all the way down, you know, to get to the Armory. I knew which buses to take. I knew how to flow. I had finally gotten my, you know, my own thing, you know, and my first three loves was in no particular order. It was football. I wanted to be Earl Campbell. The next Earl Campbell, it was hip hop and it was karate. It was martial arts. So when I moved to Liberia, they didn't play football, they played soccer. Hip hop was
non-existent.
If you found a tape, you were good.
Right.
Because where we were, we also had a huge European influence. So I could hear Rick Astley just as much as I could hear Run DMC. You know what I'm saying? And then, you know, karate, there were no karate schools. There was one karate school and it was never open. So just from me finding what I really loved in life and not being able to explore that when we went, that was a crushing blow for me. And then when you're a child, immaturity tells you that what you're going through is life. Maturity lets you know that what you're going through is a moment. Right? And there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. Right? But immaturity makes you think the world is ending, the sky is falling. And to be honest with you, I ain't even think that was Africa. I thought my father pulled something out of his ass. I thought he took us some, because it was beautiful. It was amazing. It ain't what, I mean.
It wasn't what, right.
And I was of an elevated consciousness. And I was still of the mindset that, whoa, this can't be Africa. Nah, this ain't Africa. And for a minute, I was a little punch drunk. I was like, wow. But on top of that, it was just when once you're grounded, and then you are taken from the place that you're grounded. And I'm speaking for me. All my siblings have different scenarios. You have to accept that you're no longer in that space where you done secured yourself. You got to recognize that you're in a new space, and then you got to work on grounding yourself in the new space that you're in. Like I knew where my friends were, I knew which blocks to walk on, I knew which bells to ring. Like, yo, come down, like in that Spike Lee movie, yo, Bleak, come downstairs. We had all that on my block. Moves, I had none of that. So now I had to reacclimate, and that took there was a little space, a little curve in there. But once I acclimated,
and that was what I was gonna ask you. When was that moment where you were like, okay, I'm good here?
You know, Marlon, I've gone through most of my life, even to this day, in many cases, in many places that I am, I never really feel like I'm good here because I'm good there. I feel like I'm good here because of me. Because I'm good.
Right.
But I don't, and I never really fit in too many circles. I never did. And some people may watch this and say, I don't believe that.
Right.
Because he's such a popular
Right,
guy.
right.
He's such an extrovert.
Right.
I'm really an introverted extrovert, or either an extroverted introvert.
Right.
Right? But because I had to move in such times, I never really got my footing in all of the places.
So that you're rooted.
Yeah,
in
right.
space.
Right. So, but what happened is, I think there was a moment, and I was around 15 years old. I was in 11th grade, I think. 15 years old. Yeah, I think what I was able to do was to find my tribe, right? Because I wasn't, my tribe wasn't, so it's interesting, I left elementary school. Those people were amazing in my elementary school. We still have reunions sometimes to this day. Love them to death. They know who they are. I went to junior high school. I went to the most, one of the most popular, it was the best junior high school in the city. It's a junior high school and high school from 7th grade to 12th.
What's the name of it?
St. Patrick's High School. It was a Catholic school. So I already had issues with that because my father, being the man that he is, the president's, the principal's name was, I think, James Newberry. And he was like, that's not a Catholic name. He's Jewish. And then I was like, what? He was like, yeah. So then we had this whole thing. I wound up probably breaking a record. I got what's called the NTR, never to return. I got kicked out of the school in 6 weeks.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So I left that school, went to another school where my father started collaborating with the principal of that school. His name is Frederick Umoja, a black man from America, who I actually found out years later. I don't know how my father always connect with these people, but found out years later he was in exile in Liberia because of some his Pan-Africanist revolutionary mindset in America. But you know, I do know how he connects because that's his tribe, and you find your tribe. So when I went to that school, what I didn't realize is they were using me as a catalyst to change the face of that school. Because that school typically had people who didn't start first grade at 4 or 5 or 6. There were some people who would come from what they consider upcountry or the hinterlands, and they would start school at 10 or 12, right? Or they had to work. Their family had to work, and they would have to help their families work until they were 10, 11, or 12, and they would start school. So I was in class as, like, when I went to, put it like this, when I graduated from high school, I was 16. I was in class with people who were 23, 24.
When they graduated.
When they graduated. Yeah, like there was on Facebook. It was I turned 50 2 years ago, well, a year and a half ago, 22, right? There was people that was turning 50. When I was like, when I saw it touched the mic, when I was like 42.
Right.
And I was like, that's a big age gap when you're in high school, right? So clearly I never felt comfortable there because even when playing sports, you know, you playing with adults.
With grown men.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and how that shook my confidence a little bit was being 14 and 15 years old, playing with people who were 20 years old. I didn't feel like I was good enough to play on a junior high school team or the high school team.
What sport is it? Soccer?
Basketball. By then I had acclimated to basketball. And that wasn't my first love. It was football. But I'm pretty good at almost everything I tried if I committed myself. So so in a nutshell, it shook my confidence to some degree, and even that's how I actually got a sense of humor, because I wasn't a sucker, but I couldn't fight a 21-year-old, so I had to snap on him.
Right.
and I had to learn how to snap on someone without insulting.
Right.
You know, like you
line.
snap them without. There's a liminal
There's a
path
line,
that you
yeah,
walk,
yeah.
and it's like I can snap on them and make people laugh. As soon as they say I'm gonna kick your ass, you can say some funny shit and
Right.
wiggle your way up out of it,
Right.
but you can't say some shit that's gonna crush them. You know, so that's when
Right.
I kind of started learning how to maneuver in that space. But I would leave my school and go across town to the other school that had people my age in 10th and 11th grade. So I wasn't an anomaly to them, but I was an anomaly at my school. And my father partnered with his man who wanted to change the look of the school. So when this young American boy went to the school, this expat, and then other people that were expats started coming. And, you know, so that was, and Mr. Frederick Emoja just passed away, and I got to speak to him not too long ago before he passed away. He was like 85 years old, so R.I.P. Mr. Fred.
Now, I seem to remember, you correct me if I'm wrong, you and your brothers had like a club in Liberia, or you guys had like, you were throwing like parties or some shit?
Yes, so my man Mark had a club.
Right.
His name was Mark Williams. He owned a club called Bannisters. And at 15 years old, I became a bar manager at his club.
At his club.
At his club. Yeah, Mark, I don't know where you are, brother. If you're out here and you see this, holler at me, please. I haven't seen Mark in easily 30 something years, right? And Mark was the coolest dude, man. He was a black British dude. He had all this British flavor, all these British clothes, and he had bread. I don't know where he got his bread from because he was like 24 at the time, and he would buy things in multiples because he was by himself, and he liked French. He liked friends, so he would buy 2 motorcycles. He would buy 2 cars. He would buy 2 horses, right? Like literally. So when he opened this club called Bannisters, he opened it in town. Prior to that, the club we used to go to was a club called Bacardi's. That was cross town. But the one that he opened in Bannisters, he opened for like the teenage and the 20-year-olds and the people that would come back from college for their vacations and stuff. And Mark pulled me on board. Not only did he have me doing the running the bar, I was the manager for all the bars, but we had this thing, it was a dope light show, bro. So I was like a DJ.
You was doing the lighting
board, like every night, every Friday and Saturday at 12 o'clock,
right,
smoke would come on.
Right.
And then a lighting rig would drop from the center of the dance floor, just start spinning and spinning. Then you doing stuff like It was amazing, and they had it lined up with some of the lights they had lined up with the beat.
Right.
So if you hit a light, you hit a beat like boom, boom, boom.
Right.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Right.
At 15 years old, I managed the bar.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your creativity as a kid before we leave Liberia because, like you said, hip hop wasn't at the forefront of these years because of its scarcity. Tell me about your creative, because you're a very creative individual. Tell me about your creative energy at that time when you were a teenager, because most of us find our creative paths in those years, in those coming of age years.
Understood. So I don't know if most of us find it. I think we all have it. I think most of us start believing in it later.
Or start realizing it.
Start believing in it. Because oftentimes we're told or we're shamed. We get, look at his pants. His pants is corny. But those might be the pants that somebody else is seeing selling for $10,000. You know what I'm saying? Like the way he did. So hip hop is like, my uncle was a DJ, right? So I was born into listen. He had groups in his bedroom playing music and stuff and rapping and stuff. So and I also like to believe the way hip hop came up. And if you look at hip hop and the Black Revolutionary movement, there's a lot of similarities there as it relates to, you know, who is really doing it, who are the harbingers of it, right? So from that perspective, I like to believe it was in me before I left. By 1982, for my birthday in 1980, I believe my birthday gift was 2 albums. One was Rapper's Delight and the other was The Message. Like those 2 albums. I remember my brother got a JVC radio. You know what I'm saying? So we was all in the mix from that perspective. Liberia helped me. Like I've always. Here's an interesting thing. Liberia helped me see things differently. It helped me see things because, again, influences came from all over the globe. We had Lebanese influence. We had all sorts of African, whether it was East African, West African. We had the Francophones, whether it was Guinea or Cote d'Ivoire. You know, that type of influence, and they all are very different. They can see you and look at you and tell you what kind of tribe you look like you're from.
Right.
You know, and then they can tell you how you dress and how tall you are, how you walk. I started designing clothes at 10 years old because in Liberia we would go to tailors. So I'd get a Right On magazine or a Jet magazine, and I would see like a new edition in a jacket, and I figure out and I cut that out and I add a little something to it that I saw from this Michael Jackson jacket, like, and then I take it to the tailor. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I take it to the tailor, I go down to the fabric district, find the fabric I wanted, and then I take that to the tailor, and then they make it. I don't care if it was shorts, shirts, jackets, pants, everything. So we started doing that at a very early age, you know. So and then in Liberia, in Monrovia specifically, the haves and the have-not, there's a divide. My parents were very adamant about us not just living a 1% life. So they put us in scenarios where we were around the people who, the native people, right? And unfortunately, the majority of the natives are have-nots, you know, but many of them are they still have a sense of, you know, they don't need as much as a lot of people, you know, because they have a lot of what they need, have-nots being from an economical Western perspective. That's what I mean by. So when you don't have money, you have creativity. I can make a kite out of a bamboo shoot, a newspaper, some rice, and some thread. I've learned how to do things like that. I've learned how to go fishing with no line, no fishing line. I've learned how to catch fish. I've seen some of the most creative toys made. I've seen some of the most creative clothes made. I've seen some of the most creative schemes and ideas to make money. And even as it relates to cooking, like creativity from a culinary perspective, I've learned things from being around French people, Lebanese people, Liberian people, Ghanaian people. And it's you know, you don't realize it at that time, but you're just soaking up so many different kinds of cultures. And if you're open to it, and you don't even realize that you're open to it at the time, but because my upbringing opened me up to that, I was open to it early on.
When's the first time you ever wrote a story?
Oh man! So you got to realize, I grew up in the letter writing era.
Right.
I grew up in the pen style era,
right.
and I was overseas. So at 10 years old, when we came over here, we had to write. Yeah, and our pen game was crazy. Like if I left a girl here that I thought was my girlfriend, I got busy. Like 4-page letter was nothing. I know Aaliyah was saying it and made it seem like it was a big deal.
Right, that was nothing.
But a 4-page letter was nothing. By the time I'm writing my grandmother, my aunts, sometimes you just sit down one weekend and just write people.
Right.
Write
pen
people.
pal era.
Absolutely.
Right.
But it wasn't just a pen pal for me. It was my family. It was connecting with my family. And then when so I was writing stories. I always had a gift to articulate my point. My mother tells me I had that early on. She thought I was going to be a lawyer. But so we were exercising that pen game early. You know, like Keith Sweat say, pen game sick. We were exercising that pen game early on, man. And so writing stories, I still express myself that way, man. Like I have so many. I understand how someone like a MC can pass away, and they'd be like, he had 10,000 songs.
Right.
Like I kid you not. Like I have stories on stories.
Yeah, right
on
is right,
stories.
bro.
Absolutely.
Right is right.
Bang.
Yeah. I got
Bang.
entire books no one ever
Yeah.
seen.
I was a writer long
Yeah.
before I even considered being an author.
Right.
Right? Long before I even considered being an author.
Right.
And so writing letters while overseas, and then when I left there and came to college in '88, that was still the letter writing era. So how did we connect with some of our friends? Because long distance calls wasn't like it is now. You know, you call somebody long distance, you speak for 2 minutes.
That's a grip,
right?
That's a grip.
So we had to write, and we would write. I still send cards out sometimes. I find cards and write a little note in it. And yeah, so I grew up writing. You know, and you telling people, somebody's asking you, like, yo, man, you moved all the way to Liberia. Tell me what it's like.
Right.
And you craft a story,
Right.
and what you miss about America, and what you did. It's like, you know.
That's a story.
Yeah.
So you come back
hmm
from Liberia in '88.
Yes. Graduated from high school.
Graduated
came
high
back.
school, come back here.
Yep.
16 years old.
Yep.
Now you're back in Brooklyn.
hmm
It's been 6 years,
hmm
but a very important 6 years.
Mhm.
Tell me about that.
Well, when I first came back, I came to visit Brooklyn, but my father wanted me to go live with his brother in North Carolina. And, you know, I managed a bar at a nightclub at 15. Right? I was outside.
Right.
Right? I was outside. And so when I came back, my uncle was more of a rigid, more, you know, church going, like Southern church going.
Right.
So that's twice
That's
on Sunday.
That's Wednesday.
Thursday.
Right. Bible study. Right. That's revival.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And that's you ain't gonna wake up and have the sun beat you up. You gonna get up with the sun, and you gonna get out there. And I would go with him and do things like he would recycle his newspapers. He would recycle his medals, his bottles. When he didn't have anything to do, he'd go visit his aunt, who was my great aunt, and we'd take her food. And then when he didn't have anything to do there, he would go take the elders in the church food. But he was like, "Come on, you ain't sitting at home." And I'm like, "Dude, like,
I don't mind as a devil's workshop type of deal."
As a adult, I understand it.
Yeah.
As a young man who on weekends, that was my time.
Yeah.
Like I went out Friday night.
Yeah.
I woke up late Saturday, went out Saturday night, woke up late Sunday. Weekends was my time, but in his mind and in his house, that wasn't it. So, you know, a couple of other scenarios occurred that led me to say, this ain't the place for me.
Right.
So I told him, I said, yo, I'm gonna go visit my grandmother, and you know, I'll be back. And I wound up not coming back to live. I came back to Brooklyn. Now, mind you, while I'm in Liberia, my sister is writing me, sending me cassettes of Red Alert, Mr. Magic, you know, all the stuff.
Keeping you abreast.
Yes, giving me the words like,
right.
This is deaf. It's not DEATH, it's DEF,
Right.
and it means, you know,
Right.
fly means.
So she's giving you an entire glossary.
The entire
culture.
vernacular, the
Right.
colloquialisms, everything.
Right.
She's the slang, dropping them on me. But then when I got back, she also hit me to some of the culture. She was like, yo, you know, like, don't just be weird. Because, you know, I came back, grandmother bought me a nice leather, you know, 3/4 length leather that I saw. I think Albie sure had it. I said, that's the leather I wanted. So my grandmother copped it for me. She was like, yo, you can't, don't just be rocking. They'll steal your coat. They'll stick you up. Don't be looking at nobody's girl. You know, people will cut you. Don't be wearing, because I had some dope headphones. I had a Discman. It was like, don't just, she was giving me all the rundown. Like, this ain't that. It's over here, the wolves in here.
Right.
And I was like, I don't understand this.
Right.
Like, I don't understand what you're talking about.
That's funny because I was going to ask you about the freedom of being in Liberia and being a free black young man in Liberia. And you just kind of brought that up because when you come home, now you're kind of like, you have rules to your freedom here.
Yeah. Over there, the worst thing that could happen to me is me getting into a fight.
Right.
The absolute worst thing that could happen to me. Maybe even because of my own mischief, I could have gotten arrested. But once they found out who my father was, I was getting out.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
here, your sister's knocking down.
Worst thing that can happen is you don't make it home.
You don't make it home.
You know, you get a zipper, you get $150 on your face. You know, like over some shit that you don't know nothing about.
Right.
Because you looked across and caught eyes with a girl, and then you turn back and someone said, "Yo, you looking at my girl?" You know what I'm saying? Or you walking down the street and you don't give your shoulder, and you and somebody else bump. Or you step on, like she was laying these rules down. And I was just like, wow. So it didn't really dawn on me. I heard it, but it didn't sink in.
Right.
But I started to learn and acclimate to how to maneuver. And again, I felt out of place. And because of moving at 10, getting grounded there, then getting grounded by the time I'm 15, 16, then I got to move back here, you know, went to North Carolina. That wasn't, I wasn't grounded there, came back here. I never really, I always felt like I was a little like, you know, not grounded.
Like not grounded, right.
So even when I went to college, you know, I went to college, that's a whole other story. My father couldn't stand the college. He's an HBCU guy. He couldn't stand the college that I went to. But because of that lag in time, I missed the opportunity to be admitted to the schools that I could have gone to. So then my mother didn't want me to miss another semester, because at that time I missed a semester. In Liberia, you graduate December, so I was supposed to start school for that spring semester.
But
I missed that semester, so now summer's here. My mother's like, "You're not missing another semester." She came here to get me in all the schools we were supposed to go to. Wasn't accepting anybody. She spoke to her East sister, Mama Killer, and Mama Killer told her that, well, Kaya goes to Old Westbury, and they still accepting people. So I was like, hand in hand, walked me up to Old Westbury, and I got into Old Westbury. And the interesting thing, one of the main reasons why I never really felt comfortable there, and a lot of people, if my Westbury people see this, they may not believe that I'm saying this, but I learned how to be adaptable, right? But I never really felt comfortable there because a lot of people that I went to school with were that quintessential inner city child from numbers and
playing numbers,
this,
church,
didn't have fathers,
and
some family members were on drugs, like that quintessential that I didn't know existed, right? So I acclimated in that space. Like they were, a lot of them were from the projects. A lot of them had different scenarios than I did. A lot of them didn't grow up overseas, or even before I went overseas, their parents didn't form Voltron and create their own school. And you know what I'm saying? So fortunately, Kaya was there, who was able to be my sister in college and tell me, put me on to certain things, you know. But yeah, man, I had to adapt there. And I you know, one of the reasons I didn't graduate from there and I left, because I got old enough to recognize that when I don't feel comfortable, I can leave. You know, I didn't know what I wanted to do in college. I had 69 credits, and my advisor said, "Bro, you got to pick a major. You got 69 credits, dude. You got to do something." So wound up picking a major that I didn't like, and I was just like, you know what, man, I'm gonna dip out. Yeah, you know, wound up going back, but I think that was around the time when I started realizing that even though you don't have to be accepted in order to be comfortable. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're younger, you want to be accepted. You know, but even though I was comfortable and I was able to adapt, I never really felt like this is my place. I saw a picture once of a clove of garlic, and one piece was missing and a tangerine fit in. And it said, just because you fit doesn't mean you belong. And in many cases I fit. And in some cases I belong. I'm not saying my college experience was with I don't want to seem like it was with a bunch of pigeons and I'm an eagle, right? But the reality is there were life differences that I had to adapt to, and I had to realize what I was around, and in me trying to adapt, sometimes I went overboard.
I wonder if you get that you came out of both tribal privilege and then the ability to have had an international, a global experience as a coming of age child. You really were blessed. You really were that 1% in terms of anywhere you stood in Brooklyn as a young man or even at Westbury. Your experiences in your life put you in a very unique position compared to the rest.
I started to understand that later. Again, when I was in it, I didn't know when people would treat me different, and I was like, why are they acting like that? You know what I'm saying? But it started to make sense, and I learned most of that from girls, from women. Like most of my closest friends are women. Probably because I have an older sister right above me, and we were really close. But most of my best friends are women, and I learned a lot about. They would explain things to me that men would meet me with contention. You understand what I'm saying? So sometimes I'd be like, what's wrong with him? And a girl could break it down.
Yeah. You bring, when was Brotherly Love? Like 2000?
99. I made that in 99.
At this point, you done had an entire life of experiences that are unique to 25, 26, 27-year-old women. Tell me about why you wanted to do Brotherly Love and how it came about. Shout to Sauda. When I saw Brotherly Love, I said, oh, that's my homegirl. Like you had Aziza, you had a lot of people in Brotherly Love, talent. Tell me about how that came to be.
Well, I went to school. When I finally decided to go back to school, remember I said I dropped out, so I didn't know what I wanted to major in, but I knew what I wanted to major in. So I went back to school, and Spike Lee was a heavy influence because he used to screen his dailies down at LIU, and they had a Spike Lee screening room down there. And Spike Lee, you say what you want about Spike Lee. As far as I'm concerned, he's the most prolific storyteller of my time, and that's the apotheosis.
And probably one of the most influential Brooklynites of the era.
He is the apotheosis. You've never seen a filmmaker with their own sneaker line. You know what I'm saying? Like, this dude made himself the number one sports go-to guy in New York City. Like, he's everything he does. He's just amazing. And so I wanted to tell story. I wanted to figure out how to tell stories like that guy. That guy I used to see. That. So I went to school. I went to school that's closest to him. Now, I called them for many years to get on their film set. I wound up working with them several times, but they did not, because I was calling. None of them internships came through. But I went to school to learn how to make films, and I studied under Larry Banks, dope cinematographer. One of his biggest films out there from a creative perspective was Juice. He shot that for Ernest Dickinson, and they have what's called the Larry Banks shot, that moment when Omar Epps is standing up and Tupac just appears.
Out with the locker.
When
he closes the locker.
No, I think it was, I believe it was Out of Darkness. But it was Out of Darkness. So, I mean, like, I learned under Larry Banks, and I was always doing stuff while I was in school. Like I said, I had my television show at the time. I think I was producing and hosting / directing about 7 shows or so. In school, I had Street Sounds at the music shop. I had Brooklyn Forum. I actually became the voice of basketball in high school. Which high school? It was private high school for BCAT. I became the voice of color commentator because I was a color commentator for LIU TV. I became the color commentator for the Brooklyn Kings. you know, the US BL basketball league. It was the professional basketball league in Brooklyn, and we had a lot of buzz because at the time our team was killing. Ray Haskins was coaching there. You had Mike Campbell, Richie Parker,
Right.
Charles Jones.
Yes,
You had
Jones,
Mace
right.
on the sideline, Queen Penn on the sideline, Spike Lee on. So you know, I was doing a color commentary for the. So I've been moving in that space for a while. Then when I graduated, I made a movie. I wrote a movie, and you know, I spoke with Donnell Rawlins about it, and Donnell. I wanted Donnell to play the lead, but it was a Brooklyn story. Then when he read for it, I was like, that accent. I'm like, damn. I'm like, can you do a Brooklyn? His Brooklyn accent was too contrived.
Right.
It was, yeah, son. And I love Donnell. Donnell's an amazing comedian, and even he's a dope actor. But you know, I needed some more New York flavor, and you know, Donnell was a good sport about it. But I called Talent, and when Talent came on, Talent was like, "Oh, this story is dope." He was like, "Yo, I could just do some brush ups to it and get your joke where it needs to be." But yeah, I'm in. And when Talent came on, he brought, like, I had like 13, 14 of New York's top comedians, underground comedians in that film. Yeah, and true story, Kevin Hart was supposed to be in. Kevin Hart was supposed to be in that film, and he called me. He was like, "Yo, I know I said I'd be in the film, but my agent wants me to go out to LA, and he thinks it's pilot season and there's a good opportunity for me." And he was like, "I know I promised you, but I'm in the hard play." I was like, "Bro, like, I get it. Go get that money." Had I known what I know now, I would have said, "Well, what days do you need to leave?"
Right.
All right, let me shoot out your scenes these days,
right.
and then you can go. I wasn't that astute as a filmmaker,
Right.
so that's a learning lesson for me. Because had I had Kevin Hart in my film, it would have been a different story. But I think it came together. All the comedians came. It was my first time making a film. I mean, I made a couple of shorts in college, but I wrote it, I produced it. My brother and I produced it. We collected change, collected change and since like '98, and started collecting change. And whenever somebody asked me if I had spare change, I'm like, I have no spare change.
Right.
We have a picture of all the change before we started wrapping them and taking them. And
how much was it?
It was like 2,200.
2,200.
And then that was the seed money, and then we started getting donations from friends.
Right.
Because I put it out there that I'm like, "Yo, can you help me make my movie? Can you help me?" Some people 25, 50. Some people, give whatever they can. And yeah, that's how we got that movie made. And I think we paid, all in all, like, it's tough to say what we paid for it, because what we paid for it and what it was worth is two different things. Like, just to get the talent that we had in there.
Right.
We had talent: Will, Drew Frazier, Rob Stapleton, Todd Lynn, God bless, John Smooth, God bless, Roberto Vanderpool, Jay, Sink, Tony Roberts, Kenny Williams. Like, it was crazy. Yeah. And when at the screening, Rob Stapleton came to me and said, "Attika, this will never happen again." He said, "You need to recognize what you did, because this will never happen again."
When it was done, you loved it?
No, did not. I did not. I don't think. Creativity is not ever complete for me. It's stopped. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's never complete. Like, it's stopped. And as a filmmaker, you walk the line between what you want and what you have to get. And what you want is not always what you can get. But I got enough to tell the story. And the story was accepted and received better than I thought it would be. I got a write-up in Variety behind that. Yeah, I got Variety.
Right. The reason why I asked that is, and you touched on it, when we create things, they're like our children almost. And for me, it's the same way. Like, if you give me my devices, I will forever tinker.
Yeah.
I will forever tinker.
Yeah.
So at some point, you got to stop and kind of just allow it to grow and develop on its own. Because I've had that experience where you do something, you put it in the world, and then it grows and develops way past what you thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people talk about it in ways that you didn't think they would,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I understand that. And to what you're saying is, once it hit and once it began to grow on its own as its own entity.
Yeah, we got accepted into the American Black Film Festival, and I think that was 2000. And that year, shout out to Nima Barnett. Nima Barnett had a movie called Civil Brand, and Civil Brand had Lisa Ray, Monica Calhoun, The Brat, Mos Def, Clifton Powell, Nabushe Wright. She had everybody in that film, and she had a theater. I don't remember the numbers, but let's just say her theater had 175 seats. Our theater was right across the hall from her. And let's just say we had 225. So I don't remember the numbers, but somewhere in that ballpark. Her theater was so packed out, standing room only. But the people who couldn't get in still wanted to see a movie.
So they came over.
So they came across,
Right.
and they watched our movie.
Right.
So I never got to speak to Nima about this, but
Right.
yeah, and the guy, if I'm not mistaken, the writer from Variety was part of that exodus
That came
into there,
Right.
and then he wrote, and he happened to know my man who co-directed it with me. Yeah, and I'm standing in the back, and I'm like cringing at the stuff that I know that I didn't do right, but people start laughing at the jokes.
Right.
People start repeating the jokes. They're like, "Yo, he just said," you know. And I was like, "Yo, we did it, yo, we did it." And when people started coming out, they giving me five, talking to me about what their favorite part is. And the funny thing is, if I'm not mistaken, Talent and Will had a comedy show down there that year. They just couldn't make it to the screening. So there was just this whole confluence of good fortune that occurred after we made the movie.
How much did you make money from it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We sold that. And the illest part about it, the first time I ever had bought a club called Bed. We're in a club called Bed, and I'm laying down, and it's, you know, I'm looking up there, and I'm like, they got a screen up there. So I took my my VHS to the DJ, and I was like, yo, man, we just had a bomb screening at the American Black Film Festival. I think we're going to win an award. I'm like, you mind, while you playing the music, can you put this? He was like, oh, absolutely.
Right.
He said, what is it, a comedy? He said, what kind of movie? I said, oh, it's a comedy. It's good. I'm like, it got Talent in it. It got Will. It got Tony. He said, really? Put it in. And he's like, yo, those are my dudes. Right. Yo, I was laying down in Miami as a first-time filmmaker in this club called Bed, like this, looking at my movie on the ceiling.
Right.
And that was just that was a dope moment. Yeah,
right. Surreal. All right. This starts that role, right? In any kind of creative flow, right? Professional flow, athletic flow, you get into like a role, right? And you start like a Jordan or a Kobe or a Braun, where it just becomes easier. The fucking rim gets wide and shots are going in. Tell me about that time period.
Yeah, I haven't gotten there yet.
Oh, you still ain't got there? Nah, because I remember a time. I remember you was in Locked Up, the video, the Akon piece.
Yes.
I remember you had. I mean, you could talk to it, but that time I felt like you were doing a lot.
I was.
Yeah, I felt like you were doing a lot.
So I was going on auditions. I was acting. I was acting. I was booking roles. I was like the king of like Columbia short films.
Right,
Like
right.
Columbia University, NYU, some of them NYU folks, but
Right.
mostly Columbia, and then like a bunch of other short films. Like I was all in that, and I'm a say this because I want a lot of actors or creatives to hear this. I was on a decent climb. My ascension was, it was not, like straight
Steep,
up and down,
but it was
a nice,
constant.
I booked my first feature film. I played Raekwon's brother in
Right, I remember
Coalition.
that in Coalition.
Like
Right.
everybody, O.L. Duke, God bless, was
Yeah.
in there. Anthony Chisholm. I got my first major compliment from a seasoned actor. It was Michael Wright. And that's a
Eddie
long
Kane.
story. Eddie Kane,
Eddie Kane.
Jr., Michael Wright. He was just like, yo, that's a talented dude. That's a very talented dude. And I wasn't there. It's a long story. I went to the bathroom. Power was in the movie. And I don't like using this word, but I'm going to use it. Power. So after the scene, killed the scene, like, yo, I need to go cool off, walk to the bathroom. This was in rehearsal. And then when I was walking back from the bathroom, Powell was going to the bathroom. He was like, "What up, talented nigga?" I looked at him like, "Okay." He pat me on, "What up, talented nigga?"
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if you know Powell, but he got all that Wu-Tang swag,
Right.
And so I got back to set, and then the director, Italian dude, Tony, he said, "Yo, I don't want to insult you, but I'm going to tell you what Michael said when you left. When you left, Michael looked at you and said, that's one talented nigga right there." And I was like, I didn't even feel like it came from him. It was Tony Ariel. I was like, yo, Michael Wright said that about me. Eddie Kane Jr. said that about me. So that's when I was in that space where I was moving. And I got some other roles and did some other stuff. I was in several other movies. But what I did that I would advise no one else to do is I stopped. And I'm going to tell you why. There's two reasons. One, I said, I'm going to stop taking these little roles. I'm stepping my game up, right? But when you do that, you enter. So I started getting appointments for auditions.
Right.
Instead of going in like,
Open
just come in there at
right.
1 o'clock and we'll see. I started getting appointments like, you're here and now you're auditioning in front of Vicky Thomas. And it's like you in a room and you don't just see people you know, you start seeing people you watch.
Right.
You in the audition, you outside, you get there early, you reading your lines, and now you see people that you watch and you've been watching for years. And for a split second, you like, that's so-and-so. And then soon you like, I'm killing. Like it's something that Kobe LeBron
Turns
thing
on. Right.
turns on. Like,
Game time.
Right. So I remember specifically auditioning for a role. And it was in a movie, and I'll say it was in a movie with Latifah.
Mm-hmm.
And Latifah was supposed to dominate the man. And it was being cast by Alita Chappelle. I auditioned, she loved it. And the issue was I looked too big for Latifah to dominate me.
Right.
And my thing was like, big dudes get dominated.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, but the director doesn't read right. I'm like, y'all ain't talking about my skills. Y'all talking about I look too big for Latifah to dominate me.
Right.
I was like, all right, cool.
Right.
Those were moments, and this has happened over time.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw when a role went to someone else, I saw the actor it went to, and amazing actor. I noticed that I didn't want to continue playing this audition game. And I transitioned, I made a hard right to producing. I made a hard right. What I think I could have done in hindsight was continue taking the smaller roles. Right. Because a lot of my peoples right now who are really, really working, they kept taking them small roles. They kept taking them. Yep, just constantly doing the work, 10,000 hours, 10,000 hours, 10,000 hours. And I was doing the work, but after a while, you know, maybe it's this privilege that I was raised with and the fact that I didn't need acting to eat. I'm not saying they did. I'm just saying, like, maybe that was saying, Attica, these people, no, it wasn't that. I'll tell you exactly what it was. It was that black nationalist in me. Like, these people making decisions about your talent, what you can do, whether you can be in a movie. Now you need to start making yours.
Right. It's do for self. It's do for self.
Absolutely. And that was the hard right I took, because as an actor, in many cases, you're very powerless. You get to a point where you have power, but in many cases, you're powerless.
A lot of people don't understand that. Talent is very powerful.
Yo, bro, there's some rooms they don't even want talent in, and the way they talk about them is crazy. You know, but the reality is, the talent, they're all employees. You know, they get to the point now where they can say, if you want me in it, I need producer credit. I need this. But for the most part, you don't get there that easily. There's a lot that you go through to get to the point where you're not just shut up and work, right? So I got to the point where I really wanted to be someone who could make the decisions, who had a little bit more autonomy over what roles I played, what movie I played, and who I worked with, because I don't like a lot of people. I want to work with the people I like. I don't like people who try to take advantage of other people. I don't like people who don't care about their crew. I don't like people who don't care about the talent. I'm a director as well. I'm a director that believes that my script is not the magnum opus. Like, this script is a roadmap. You can help me get to where I need to go. Primarily because a director, most directors don't make a movie every year. Some don't make a movie every 3 years. Actors work with other directors month after month after month after month. So they have more experience in doing some of this stuff than most directors do. So you'd be an idiot not to take advice sometimes, or at least hear what another actor has to say or a cinematographer has to say. Because cinematographer can work with 5 directors in a year. The director ain't working with no other director.
5 cinematographers.
Right? So if you have an idea, someone else may know how to help you get it out. So that's the kind of director that I am, because I'm also an actor. Yeah.
Tell me about producing. What does it mean to be a producer?
Producing. So if you think about it from a corporate setup, and that word has become very nebulous at this point, right? So, because that's why you look at a movie now, you see the credits and there's 10 producers on it, right? Because everybody has finagled their way into
the credit,
right? But the reality is, if you broke it down into like a corporate setting, a director would be the chief creative officer. The cinematographer would be the chief technical officer. Cinematographer figures out how to interpret the director's vision. The producer would be the chief financial officer. The producer would be the person who understands the budget. He understands how, or she understands how to come in on time. They know they're resourceful enough to know who to hire. They understand tax credits. They understand everything. They understand how to make the money work. They are the front line for the executive producers. And then producers have teams under them, like unit production managers and production coordinators and things of that nature. But the producer's primary job is understanding if this creative can fit in this budget. And if it can't, what needs to be done. Yeah. Then you have other kinds of producers. Now, like I said, you got the list. You got some people who are not very savvy as it relates to the bean counting, right? But they're very resourceful as it relates to crew and hiring crew and making things happen as it relates to the actual production, then you got creative producers, then you got all these other folks, but a producer, because oftentimes you'll see producer John, Sally. Oh, that's crazy, right?
Right.
That's somebody's old name. John, Sarah. Then you'll see the next page, producer Eric and Kim, and then you'll see produced by
Right.
this person.
Right.
Right. Those are other people who have different types of producing credits. You know what I'm saying? Because now, like I said, it's a little nebulous because a lot of people get credit, but then it's produced by Jerry Bruckheimer.
Right.
And that's where the buck stops.
That's the buck stops.
Yeah, that's the CFO.
Produce, direct, act, screenwriting.
Mm-hmm.
You had to choose one. What would you choose? That you could only do one.
I don't have to.
I know you don't
I don't
have
have
to.
to.
But if you had to, let me ask you differently. Which one is where you find your purpose in the most?
It's all the same.
Is it?
It's all the same. It's all creativity. Like and I don't like, yeah, like there's no, I don't have to.
Do you still seek out acting roles?
No, I write them.
Right.
I write them.
So no more auditions. It's due for self.
No, like I haven't auditioned. Man, listen, like it's not to say I won't. I've been asked to do things and I've done it. But yeah, my next film is coming out in 2024. I wrote it, produced it, directed it, and acted it.
What's it about?
It's called Sins of the Father.
Mm-hmm.
And wow, it's I've been living with this for the past like year in post production. That when you ask me that, I want to just give like the standard synopsis. But wow, this is just amazing. We shot it during COVID, and if you were to think of Basic Instinct or Fatal Attraction, it's similar to that, but there the antagonist was a love interest. In this one, there is no true antagonist, but the one who plays the antagonist for the sake of conversation is not a love interest. It's a child of a man who doesn't even know she exists. Right?
Did I see like a short or a piece of this?
You may have seen images of it.
I may have seen
because
images
I
of it.
posted images while we were in post.
Yeah.
But what happens is during COVID, she begins to unravel.
Right.
And her father is a public figure.
Remember we talked during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
right? We had that interview. I think that's where were you at that time with it? Because I think
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think I may have seen some images of it.
Yeah. I posted some images online while we were in production, and then I posted some while we were in post production. But what it is, it's a young lady who has her life in order. Everything is going well for her. She's been able to shut out the fact that her father, even though her father's a public figure, he doesn't exist to her,
Right.
because she doesn't exist to him.
Right.
And during COVID, they said depression came on full blast and people weren't able to see their therapists and all that. She just started to unravel, and then she started to think of ways, why am I living with this and he's not? And then she started thinking of ways. Her goal was to get her father to tell her that he loves her. And that's in a nutshell what the story is. And it's called Sins of the Father because when I was a new parent, the first thing somebody said to me, one of my dudes said, he said, "Yo, what'd you have?" I said, "I had a girl." He said, "The daughter suffered the sins of the father, right?" I said, "Well, in that case, mine is good. We good." Like, if that's the case, then yeah, then I'm good. But I'll never forget. I know exactly who said it.
Right.
Yeah, I know exactly who said it.
I want to talk.
What platform is it going to be on?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
What we plan to do is play the festival circuit.
Right.
And then see who will, what the best fit would be. That's the plan.
I want to talk to you about some of your quote-unquote most accomplished works, and by that I mean the things that you have been awarded for.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to kind of get a feel of your creative work
Mm-hmm.
versus the work for hire,
Mm-hmm.
and how that exists for you creatively, the
Mhm.
differences.
Mm-hmm.
But first, let's talk about your highlights in terms of
Mhm.
the awards that you won. I know you. I was very proud of the Khalif Browder
Mm.
piece. It was an amazing um, piece, and you were producer.
I was not a producer on that. Interestingly enough, I keep touching this mic. Sorry about that. I was, I was. They created a role for me as a second key grip,
Mm,
as a technical, in the technical department.
mm,
My man Che was the key grip on that job, and he was busy doing something else. He asked me to cover for him during the scout, the tech scout. And I told him, man, you know, I don't do this anymore. I'm producing. I don't do the below the line stuff. Excuse me. So he said, come on, Ad, I need you. So I was like, I bet. So I went into tech scout for him. And in the 4 days that I was there, the director told me, you have a vast amount of knowledge. It was two directors, a couple, man and woman. And they said, we want you on our. No, he said something about, oh, I can't wait till we start shooting. I was like, yeah, I won't be here.
right.
And he was like, what do you mean you won't be here? I was like, this is Che's job. This is not my job. I'm just covering him and I'm passing off information. So then, in a nutshell, he was like, we need to figure out what we need to do to get you on.
Get you.
Yeah, so that position existed already, but they made amends to have me on their set. And when that job ended, they was like, we need you on our next job. But I was instrumental in, like, I was the only person that Khalif's mother, Vanita, wanted to speak. She, at one point, it was like nobody could come in the house. And they was like, they came and said, of the crew, you're the only one that she wants in the house. So sometimes you move in your own way. There's a word, your haxeity. You move in your haxeity, and that means, if anybody in the sphere wants to define it, it's HAECCEITY. It means that your you-ness, that thing that makes you you, that no one else have, right? That snowflake thing, right? So when you move in that spirit, some people are attracted to it. And I was able to speak to Mrs. Browder a couple of times, but not. I stay away from people talent on set and understanding the the severity of the subject matter. You don't want to just start having small talk and stuff. But something she saw in me, and she was like, "Yo, he can come in." So I connected with the team, and they brought me on as producer. They was like, "Our next job, you gotta be on it." And I was like, "Well, we're talking about it."
What was the next job?
The next job was Rest in Power, the Trayvon Martin
Trayvon
documentary.
Martin.
Yeah.
And what was your role in that?
I was a producer on this.
Producer.
Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting because at first, you know, they offered me the job as a field producer, and I was like, field producer. And I'm thinking, I'm like, that's what happens when you take a job below you. They start thinking they can offer you shit below you, right?
Right.
So then at first I was like, nah, I'm not doing that. And I had conversations with a few people, my mother, my wife, my man. They was like, yo, you gotta be in the room sometimes. You gotta, I say no to a lot of stuff. I say no to a lot of stuff. And, it's like sometimes you gotta say yes sometimes. So sometimes you gotta be in the room. So I agreed to do it. But the moment I was there, like within a very short period of time, and they realized that one of the producers that they had there just had a different skill set. Mine was probably a little, more for that.
Yeah.
So I wound up becoming the producer on it, and wound up giving input in pre-production before we went down to shoot. Like there were times when the directors would stay back and I'd go down. Technically, I was also a second unit director because I was down in Florida managing the whole production, framing up shots and shooting things. I did the interview with Carmelo Anthony and gave some insight on, there was a lot of things that we did to massage it and get it where it was. This job, I wasn't managing the money from a line producer perspective, which I don't like to do as a line producer, but I was managing it, understanding what needed to be done, what our time frame was, which locations we needed, how to save money here, how to save money there, and how to get the job done. So much so that the directors and the EPs were comfortable staying in New York and sending the whole crew down with me, and we took care of a lot of stuff.
So now that juxtaposition between work for hire, and like your own creations, like tell me about kind of like the differences and where you like, what's more preferable for your work.
Yeah, you just gotta be a little bit, malleable as it relates to understanding where you are. There's a time for everything, and if you look at the likes of James Harden or Russell Westbrook or people like that who have dominated and controlled their own team, and then sometimes they join another team and their role is a little different. You know what I'm saying? Or you look at someone like Devin Booker who brings on a Kevin Durant and a Bradley Beal, and now all of a sudden, instead of being top dog, you're one of a three-headed monster. And in some cases, you're number two. Some cases, you're number one. Some cases, you're number three. Like, it just understanding that you have to stay focused on a goal, and the goal is the North Star. You do what's needed in that moment, right? The goal is the North Star.
Right.
Your ego is not the North Star.
Right.
You stay focused on the goal, and you bring the ship home. That's your job as a producer.
Right.
So it's not too difficult in the roles of short-term work. Long-term work is where it becomes challenging. You know what I'm saying? Because short-term work, you understand the end is here.
Right.
You're going to shoot this for 6 weeks, or you're going to shoot this for 6 days,
Right.
or no matter what it is.
Right.
And you can park certain contentions because it's short term. When you have to manage it long term is when you have to stop and check yourself and figure out, is this about me, or is this about the job, or is this about them? Because this is a very ego-driven business. It's a very ego-driven business. I think life is an ego-driven business, right? And then there's some times where you have to question. Oftentimes people will walk away from a job. And we all have done it. We all have thought about it, but the reality is sometimes it's not necessary. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's not. And you have to walk that line between, is this necessary and is it not? Because when you're doing work for hire, sometimes people don't respect your position. They don't respect the skin in the game. They don't respect the resources that you bring to the table. All they respect is the fact that their title says something that's a little bit higher than yours.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But the reality is, if not for the work that the thing, you don't even see the fires that I'm putting out.
Mm-hmm.
Prime example, one job, Roger Guinevere Smith was the actor on the job. I was a producer on the job. Now this job, a producer from LA came, and they just, in the business they say there's the LA way and then there's the right way. You know what I'm saying? So like I remember when we were shooting, we were gonna steal some shots in the hotel. That's when they had first built the Hampton Inn Artillery. And then I'm going to talk to them about renting some rooms, and we were gonna rent some rooms. So now one of the producers that the LA producer hired came in. He walks to the front desk. It was like, hey man, yeah, we want to shoot a movie. We want to do all these. I'm like, come on, bro. So then the girl at the desk said, yeah, you can do that. The next morning, we had 3 people, the head of marketing, the head of grounds and maintenance, and security there, because he told them we were shooting a movie. The way they do things is different. One time, Roger Guinevere Smith was on set. We had him we was running late on time. We had him, and I love Roger as an actor and as a person. I love most people. Like, I don't meet too many people that I'm just like, you know, some people we don't mesh, but, you know, that's fine. So, Roger, we were running behind. He was in his room all day long. Now we needed him to stay a little longer. And the producer from LA was saying, well, he's getting paid. And Roger heard that. And Roger was like, take me to the airport. And I had to go talk to him. I had to go talk him down and have him do. But at the end of the movie, none of that comes up. The fact that we could have lost Roger or in the 25th hour, and he was one of the biggest names in the movie. None of that comes up. Because sometimes being a producer is a thankless job. It's like being a father. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, so everybody's thinking that the mom is doing everything.
You don't get accolades for doing what you're supposed to do.
It's a thankless job. But especially when you're a producer for hire. So that's what it's like. But you gotta stay focused on the goal. You gotta know where, you know, you just gotta know where how to solve, it ain't when something's gonna happen. I mean, it ain't whether something's gonna happen or not, it's when. And your answer is never, this can't be solved. That's never your answer. Your answer is always, there is an answer for this, I have to figure it out. But then when you're at the top, everybody's coming to you for that answer. When you're a work for hire, everybody's expecting you to have that answer. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, if you make the decision without letting them know, it's just a bunch of nonsense.
And that's what production is about on every level, because even event production is like that.
Oh,
it's like you got to solve the problem, because they're gonna exist.
Everything, I don't even consider them problems, yo. Like one time, true story. We was in Atlanta, and I'm creative director for a company that you know, we do short-term stuff, branded campaign stuff. I'm in Atlanta, and I'm with my man Lee Harris. We get a phone call from the executive producer. She says, oh my God, there are bombs going out everywhere. Word is born. I was like, yeah, and we're the bomb squad. What's poppin'?
What's good?
We the bomb squad. We gonna fix it. Because first of all, I'm not taking that energy on. Like, you're the executive producer, and that shit is rolling downhill. So I'm stopping it here. I'm not even taking it.
I'm not passing that.
We're the bomb squad. What's popping? And it wasn't even that much. We just had to get to it, and we got to it. But that's just what it is. You have, and that comes with experience. It comes with experience. It's like, you know, the sky is falling for a lot of people in many different scenarios, and you just gotta, as a producer, someone who understands that there is an answer for everything. If we just stop and think about it, we'll get to it.
One last question before we get to the questions on the live. I want you to talk about the Torrance collection.
Oh.
Fly. I want the camo piece. You said
you.
the camo piece is like very highly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So this is, wow. This is a product of Do for Self. My father always had this thing about brand names. And he was like, you're paying people to advertise for them. He said, you're paying them to advertise. And I've never been a brand name guy, because my father put that in me. He was like, you paying them to advertise for you. And one of my favorite lines is, you know, Calvin Klein is no friend of mine, don't want nobody's name on my behind. That's one of my favorite lines to this day. And so during COVID, after we wrote the book and we started, so we wrote
We need
Brooklyn
to get to
Bread.
the book.
We wrote Brooklyn Bread, and we created this little cultural phenomenon about it by selling 500 copies during the pandemic for $100 each.
Right.
And we sold them out, so we started doing live. I created what's called the Quarantine Book Tour.
Right.
So which means we was on IG Live, Zoom, all the lives, right? So stealing from Spike Lee, whenever you want to know what movie was coming out, you just watch Spike Lee at the Knicks game. He either had X hat on or she's got to have it. So I got some shirts printed. And as I'm talking on these lives, people are hitting me like, yo, what up with that shirt? What up with that shirt? So it was a t-shirt thing first. Now, my daughter did a song that was never released because we couldn't master it because she couldn't go back in because of COVID. It was called Hoodies and Bows. Shout out to Kel Spencer. I was going to create a girls' hoodie line called Hoodies and Bows, right? Because most girls that wear hoodies, they wear boys' hoodies. They make hoodies unisex, right? But we had this whole thing, and somebody just dropped some shit on somebody that's gonna go do it, right? But I've done a lot of research for clothes, so I was like, we ain't doing that, but I can do something. So I stepped it up from that to actually, this was my first hoodie, and you know, the fact that it said established University of Old Brooklyn, established pre-gentrification, this was selling like hotcakes. So then I just started making stuff that I like. That's how I made these leather suede tuxedo joggers. You know what I'm saying? I was able to get this logo and get, you know, clearance for it. And I make stuff that I like. And if you know anything about clothes, making clothes or books or something, a proof is very expensive. So and here's the thing that you learn in business school. This is a whole other thing. I went to school for my MBA. That's a whole other thing. Didn't graduate either, but I went. One of the things I learned is America is an R&D company, research and development. Asia is a put it out, let the people research and develop it. So that's why by the time you have iPad 1, iPad 2 is in the worst because they hear what the consumer is saying. Right. Then they got iPad 3 coming. America's going to spend a lot of their front end money on research and development. Yeah, while these people just putting them out. So I was just like, yo, just put them out. So instead of buying one proof, I buy 6 because it costs the same amount to buy 6 as it did 1. And then if no one wanted them, fine, I still got what I wanted. But then people started buying them. People started buying them. And they see me out and be like, yo, what's up with those? I want that, I want that, I want that. And, you know, it went from me making clothes for myself to the business was outpacing me. Right. And I tried to catch up. Right. And I still haven't caught up. Right. I'm hoping to have some form of partnership with Hip Hop Closet. Right. But that's a whole other conversation that we've been, you know, ruminating on for a while. But that's what it was. I just do, here's what it is. I think it, I do it. Whether it's a book, whether it's a movie, whether it's clothes, whether it's an event, whether it's a film festival, I think it, whether it's a jam in the park, I think it and I do it.
Shout out to April.
Hey, April makes me smile. She said yes to me to do my music video show years ago too. Wow. You start where you are. You start where you are. Making a film is no different than any other form of creative expression. I don't care if it's cooking. Some people will sit in culinary school forever. Some people will watch, learn, try it, mess up, try it again, get better, add their own flavor. Next thing you know, they got an entree. Making a film, I would love to say, go to school, spread that bread, and come out, you'll be a filmmaker, but I'd be lying. Not only that, there's some people that are dope and amazing filmmakers that never went to film school. If you have an idea, one of the things I said before the question is, I think it and I do it. If you have an idea and you want to do it, there's enough information out here to figure out ways. Shoot the scenes on your iPhone. practice. Practice the scenes, edit them. There are books out here you can read on framing. Framing is very important. One of the best films I've seen recently is a film called The Gentleman by Guy Ritchie. Whoa, blew my mind from the opening credit sequence. This is the first thing that I said could compete with a 007 credit sequence. Guy Ritchie, The Gentleman. But find out who are your favorite filmmakers. Study. Don't just be like, I'm gonna make a film and don't study anything. And if you have the bread and the time, take a summer course. You don't have to take a full-on semester. Take a summer course at New York Film Academy just to boost up your confidence. But it starts with the screenplay. That's why when you ask me what's best, what do I like most, none of this moves without an idea, without writing. And then, you know, become synonymous with what you do. April Walker is synonymous with fashion, right? So when you become synonymous with what you do, people come to you for that. Yeah, just do it and get better. Stumble forward. Keep stumbling forward. That would be my answer.
That was a great answer. It's so funny. As soon right before you said about the script, IML David said you need a good script to start.
No, you don't.
No?
No, you don't. A good script is relative. You need a script.
Well, isn't a screen
You don't need it. Look.
a screen?
See,
Is that the
good
same
puts
thing?
standards on stuff,
Okay.
right? You need to make a movie. That's what you do. I understand what IML Davis is saying, and I don't want to make it seem like what that person is saying. I don't know if it's a guy or a girl, but
Okay.
I don't know if I don't want to make it seem like what he's saying doesn't have validity. But I don't want the person that's sitting on their script that is not sure if it's good yet, want to get it to someone else to proofread it. And then someone else is taking time. And then they want to see if they can get it to this person. And they want to get it to Attika for Attika to read. Attika ain't reading that. Make the movie, right? Make the movie. Enter that into a film festival, right? There's somebody that's going to show that film. Guaranteed. Enter your film, your bullshit film,
Right.
in a film festival. It may not be as bullshit as you think it is. Don't think I gotta have a good script. I gotta have a great script. Because here's the deal: when I have brotherly love, I'm not a comedian. I got the story to talent. Talent said, "I will brush up these jokes for you." If I was waiting to have Titanic on page,
Right.
I'd have never made a
Never
movie.
did.
So I understand what the brother's saying, and there's validity to that. But to the filmmaker or the person that's waiting, make your movie. And then once you make it, you're a filmmaker. And then you can make another one. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't start if you don't start.
That's true. Hard Hitting Harry is in the building, and he just wanted to say, I can't scroll back up, but he didn't have a question. He was just like,
He just said, "What up?"
yeah, he
Shout
said, "What's
to
up?
Harry.
You're dope."
Yeah,
Shout out.
to Harry.
Shout out to
Harry.
Attica. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
So that's it. That's it.
This was amazing, and the thing about it is that we didn't even really get to the book. It was so much we didn't touch on,
Mm-hmm.
and like, you know, I appreciate you. Every time I call on you to have conversations, you never say no. You come, and not only are you gracious in the moment, but you drop real knowledge, right?
Thank you.
And I appreciate it. Yeah, man, we back.
We back.
We
Wait,
back.
That's how you start your
We back. That's how
motherfucking
you do
year.
it. Yeah,
My
we
hair is
back.
it's a
Guy, you
rainy,
gonna come
a rainy
through,
day. My
right?
hair is a double.
You know
My
what I'm saying?
kicks are lit. My kicks are lit.
You know what I mean? We back, man. I want to shout out real quick. I want to shout out Diggs in Republic of Brooklyn. He left this. I was up at the Catskills this weekend. He left it at the crib for me. It says on the back, it says Brooklyn till I die. Y'all see that? Shout to Diggs. And yeah, man, I'm about that. I'm about wear your friends. That's House of Swag. Kai got House of Swag. One shout to Tony. I need a Torrance piece, man. I told you the piece I want, that camel piece.
Yeah, we gotta work
That's
on
the
that
piece,
camo.
man. I need that piece.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So until next week, we back.
Yes, we
Right.
back. We back. We back.
We good. You catch us on the socials at 7 p.m. IG Live. We got love. Jay, you got a last word?
Peace.
Peace. That's the last word. Peace. We out. See you next Tuesday.